en masse?
It's already occurring. The question is, are they going to? I mean, as individuals, I mean, there's trade unionists, and there are the unions, and in an institutional context, and we can look at it that. But I'm thinking purely from a personal point of view. Trade unionists are coming to their own conclusions. I mean, I know trade unionists in various unions, and I'm not going to name names, it wouldn't be fair. But I do recall on the run-up to the NATO debate within the SNP, which I was involved in, getting a communication from a senior trade unionist in another union, not the EIS, who is a Labour Party member, more or less saying, you lot will have to win this debate if we're going to get independence. And, you know, and when it occurred, I was a bit taken aback, but there has been a lot of that. There's a lot of people who, and you have to remember, since the days of Blair, there are many trade union activists who have been in the Labour Party all their life that left Labour. And a lot of them, large numbers of them, are naturally taking up a pro-independent stance. Literally isn't well, from our perspective, it isn't really rocket science. And you're also seeing an interesting phenomenon, I think, also. Young leftist activists, and I think you've talked to people from the Radical Independence Convention, as I will describe, young folk, as I will call them, almost, and I put this to one or two of them to test it out in a sort of objective way. I said to them, look, I'm getting the impression that if you are a young political activist in Scotland, and you are centre-left, and you are not seeking a job within the Labour Party, and no, I'm not talking about Labour Party membership, just you're not seeking a career within the Labour Party at this time, that almost part of your makeup is support for independence. And they're saying, yeah, that's pretty much the case. And if you look at even in the far left organisations, with the exception of the Communist Party of Britain, as far as I'm aware, almost all the others are coming out in favour of independence. And even within the unions, they've been very coy about coming out hard against the SNP. The unions that have up until now, I think one of them is Community. Now, Community is a union, is a rebranding. Community was the Iron Steel Trades Confederation. That was a steelworkers union. And because of the disappearance of the steelworks, it had to reinvent itself. So it reinvented itself as a more general trade union. And it has come out against independence. The NCASLEF, the train drivers union, a relatively small membership, they've come out against independence. I don't expect many of the others would do so unless they feel that they could comfortably do it. But I doubt if they will. I doubt if they will, because many of their activists are taking an overtly pro-independent stance. I mean, my own union, the EIS, has never been affiliated to any political party. As I say, it's the oldest teachers' trade union in the world. It only affiliated to the Scottish Trade Union Congress in the 1970s, but it took an early decision it wouldn't, and it had debates apparently at that time, just before my time, and they decided they would not affiliate to any union. So in that sense, the EIS is one of a number of unions that's not affiliated to any party, and doesn't have a position on the constitutional question. Whether we'd push it to a vote is another matter, because the people, unless people were to put it to a widespread ballot of the members, the question is, why would they? Because I think there is an issue over what people perceive as union endorsement. I think the unions themselves are looking to their own members and wonder, well, we'll let the members decide.
So you don't expect there'll be major declarations for independence from any of the unions either?
I don't expect that, but at the same time, I don't well, who knows? But we'll see. We've got another year to go. I would expect a lot of the bigger unions will cow Connie. Some of the leading, I mean, for instance, some unions have a very close relationship with the Labour Party. Some relationship is less close. Leading figures there may well come out with statements from time to time, but they're in real difficulty. They're in real difficulty. I mean, look what's happening with Unite and the Labour Party at the moment. You've got Miliband sending in the Polis, and I think today announced it's not just Falkirk, it's another couple of constituency associations. So the Labour Party's relationship with the trade union movement is becoming more strained. As every year passes, these organic links with Labour are becoming more and more and more strained.
As Labour moves more and more to the right. And
Yeah.
not only that, but I don't know if you saw the most recent poll today that the Tories are catching up Miliband's Labour, and his approval ratings are terrible. People think he's doing an appalling job as an opposition. So it looks like you're going to get Tories until 2020.
Therein lies part of the problem, and we don't know what's going to happen. But I mean, underlying all of this, there is, in my opinion, a wider trend. I mean, there are the arguments in favour of the positive arguments in favour of independence, but there's what's happening down south. We had at our EIS conference, the shape of our annual, they call them annual general meetings because we're the institute, but our annual conference in June, we're reshaping how we're structuring a little. And we had as a speaker the president of the National Union of Teachers, which is one of the main trade unions in England and Wales. And the picture she was painting was quite horrific. I mean, literally they're having to reorganise themselves because you have some of these consortia that are running schools. They might have half a dozen schools, secondary schools, say in one part of England, and then 200 miles away they've got another 4 or 5 schools. Well, because they're the employer, the union branch is the members in the 6 schools in one part of England and the members in the 5 schools in the other part of England. And they're having a huge upheaval in trying to reorganise themselves. You're seeing basic teaching posts being advertised in the English press for 14 grand a year. I mean, it's just absurd. And you know, you're seeing a deconstruction in front of our eyes. We're seeing a deconstruction. I mean, I remember saying recently, saying a wee while ago to a colleague of mine, in fact it was MP, and I was saying, come the next set of elections, the referendum, I think this was just before we won the majority in the SNP won the majority in the Scottish Parliament. I said, come the elections, the next UK elections, the SNP could put up a sort of mock 1946 sepia poster about the NHS. At that time, Nicola Sturgeon was the health minister. I said you could have a photograph or a sepia portrait of Nicola looking into the half distance with a glorious NHS behind us, because they know down south they no longer have one. I mean, that's the point. When in a few years' time when we're talking about in the National Health Service, it'll be in Scotland, it won't be down south. And we're seeing a deconstruction of welfareism down south, universalism out, the NHS deconstructed, comprehensive education being ripped apart, Michael Gove running riot with sort of tabloid stroke images of what's meant to be academic excellence in schools, traditional methods and things like that. It's almost going back to the Stone Age and to some extent.
Just as an aside, a little interesting aside, I think, do you know what the statistics are for union membership, Scotland compared to England? Like, percentage-wise, is it higher or lower, or is it similar?
The answer to that is I'm not sure, but but in the public sector in Scotland, I mean, in the area where I can talk about, which is the public sector, because we don't have conservative councils, because of the PR, of course, we've got councils of sort of rainbow coalitions of this, that, and the next thing, all sorts of coalitions all over Scotland. There is still a degree within Scottish local government, and certainly within the Scottish government, Scottish local government, Scottish government have I'll call it a broadly civilised view of industrial relations. So the relationships to their public sector employees, and the NHS, of course, is actually quite good. Well, down south, we're seeing a degree of deconstruction. I come back to the point I made earlier about Unison Health Service activists going down to England and taking part in conferences with their colleagues down south and more or less muttering to themselves when they get back up on the train, thank God I'm going home, we don't have this to put up with. So there is something different. And even the way that the media in Scotland treat the trade union movement is more positive. And the other aspect, I mean, a good example of that is, if I may put it, is how the race card isn't played by any of the parties really up here. You don't see the race card being played. You don't, UKIP is a significant player one way or another in every electoral contest in the coming period down south. You only need to pick up the Observer, or any other newspaper from down south to see that every party's factoring in the UKIP effect to the extent they're going to win seats. Up here, they didn't even, despite the fact that the BBC decided to give George Galloway, who's no representation in Scotland, and the leader of UKIP, who's no representation in Scotland, 2 seats on the question time before the Donside by-election. UKIP didn't manage to didn't save the deposit. So there is a continuing development of a different political culture and a more progressive political culture in Scotland than down south. And I think people will look back at the history books and they will see that in down south they're looking more towards American models of doing things, while in Scotland we still retain the sort of social democratic consensus, a degree of it, that you'll find in the continent. And in down south, as I say, they're looking more and more, public bad, private good sort of thing.
Okay, I think that'd be a good point to wrap it up for tonight, actually. So thanks for coming on, Bill. That was really good.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hi, so that was the conversation with Bill. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back at the weekend with For All That, I think, although our summer timetable is going to be a little bit more sporadic than usual. We can't promise every Saturday, I think. So, as usual, the guest chooses the tune, and this is what Bill chose.
How do you do, young Willie McBride? Do you mind if I sit here down by your graveside and rest for a while in the warm summer sun? I've been walking all day and I'm nearly done. I see by your gravestone you were only 19 when you joined the Great Fallen in 1960. I hope you died quick and I hope you died clean, or young Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they play the fife lowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? Did you leave a young wife or a sweetheart behind? In some faithful heart is your memory enshrined, though I know that you died back in 1916. In that faithful heart are you forever 19? Or are you a stranger without even a name, enclosed in forever behind a glass pane? In an old photograph, torn and tattered and stained, and faded to yellow in a brown leather frame. Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they play the fife lowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the forest? The sun shines bright on the green fields of France. The warm summer breeze makes the red poppies dance. The trenches are scattered long under the plough. No gas, no barbed wire, there's no gunfire now. But here in this graveyard it is still no man's land. The countless white crosses are mute where they stand. To man's blind indifference to his fellow man, and a whole generation that were butchered and damned. Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they play the fife lowly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band play the last post and chorus? Did the pipes play the flowers of the fall?